everybody! It is time! It is finally time! Or at least to me it feels like finally time to get back to the main thing! Because, oh boy. First video in a while, honestly, was not fun to record. I enjoyed the lore, I enjoyed the information and all that. But I recorded that for that 4 hours and however long video that was. I recorded that in one setting. Like, I recorded different videos just so if something glitched out and the recording crashed, I wouldn't lose the entire recording. But I recorded it all in one sitting. I started at like 10 p.m. and recorded until like 2 a.m. Well, more like 2:30 a.m. because it took a little longer to record than it to, like, I did take I recorded until about 3 a.m. because I took about an hour break in the middle. But, phew, I am so happy and excited for us to get back to the actual main stuff. So, thinking back, we had just allowed our daughter to come to the Royal Council meeting, and we were about to head on out to it. Alright, that's where we're at. The stairway to the Royal Council chambers was longer than I remembered. I took a moment to catch my breath in front of the carved oak doors. Hurry up, Father! It's not very kingly of you to be late. Just give me a second. After collecting my thoughts, I pushed open the door and walked in. I'd only been here once or twice. I gazed up at the high domed ceiling, with its skylight that shone down into the center of the room. Below it, a tall-backed red velvet chair towered over an oval mahogany table. Mahogany, woo! The best wood type, mostly because one of my friends uses a username in, like, a lot of things, so... Woo! I don't know. To my slight surprise, the room was empty except for one man, my uncle. When Hugo saw me, he sprang to his feet. Interesting. What are you doing? Why? Huh? Romus, my boy. I'm gonna embrace him. I embraced my uncle. He hugged me back warmly. You'll meet everyone else soon enough, but I thought a private chat with your Grand Visor would be in order first. His eyes traveled to the doorway, where Vina was still standing. Although it seems it won't be as private as expecting. Are you staying, Princess Vina? My daughter gave a shy nod. Yes, Uncle Hugo. I'm sitting on the King's Council meetings. She's going to learn by experience. I wish I had done the same. Hugo frowned as he processed this new information, then broke into a smile. By all means, then, Your Highness, have a seat. Hey. If she has a chance of becoming the next monarch, she needs to know what to do. Vina walked over to the table as I made my way to the red velvet chair. Once we were all seated, I turned to my uncle. How is your son? He smiled fondly. Rico's still the Hellraiser we both know and love, but governing Iza has instilled a real sense of responsibility in him. I hope you can make it out for a visit soon. Both of you. As I listened to him, my eyes drifted toward the back wall. It was covered in portraits of Riza's previous kings, including a newly painted likeness of my father. My dear brother, I do miss him, but I dare say it's time we had some fresh blood on the throne. As Valero never got a chance to fill you in on his royal duties before he passed, I prepared an overview for you. Would you like to hear it? Please. As the king, you're both Riza's head of state and commander of his armed forces, as well as the de jure governor of Riza Imperial, Vernitz, the Pales Administrative District, and the island of Calquiz. So obviously the main province, and then the province of Villarquiz, the Pales Administrative District, and that island. Okay. Like your father and your grandfather before you, you alone have the power to shape this country by passing royal decrees. As is tradition over hundreds of years, each new ruler has passed the sovereign transition and clemency decree to start their reign. The king will be expecting your decree soon. Thanks for your advice, Uncle. It's comforting to have your wisdom and experience guiding me at the start of my reign. Sometimes you gotta butter a guy up. You know, butter him up. Your humiliate is appreciated, but remember, being king is about making hard decisions, not just following advice. Hugo reached for a newly rolled parchment lying on the grand table. With deliberate movement, he unrolled it, revealing the prepared royal decree. The intricate script and the seal of Rizia was glinting under the Chancellor's light. I and the rest of the Royal Council will advise you to the best of our ability and put forth decrees and state decisions for your approval. Ultimately, the king has the final say. However, you should not neglect the House of Delegates, the legislative assembly my brother set to appease the opposition after the uprising. That's right, his theater of puppets. Hugo pursed his lips. It was the only way for him to stay in power. Rizia could not survive past the 1920s without some semblance of democracy. His Majesty Villaro presided over the last election in 1949. The Rizian National Coalition secured a House majority, as always. They propose decrees and issue official approvals or disapprovals of the law passed by you and the Council. As Grand Vizier, it's tradition for me to attend their sessions and pass any relevant information on to you. What do you think would be the consequence if I ignore them? Officially, there are none. Unofficially, I'd advise you to take their input into account. Thankfully, your coronation speech got you off on the right foot with the RNC, even if the speech itself was highly unconventional. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. Thank you for letting me know. I'll be sure to listen to them going forward. I'm here to serve, Your Majesty. Fortunately, the delegate's speaker, Dario de Reva, is Torres loyalist through and through. She should give you no trouble. The opposition is small, but worth keeping an eye on, especially the new leader, Manus Suzerain. Hugo gave a meaningful look. The traitor's son? Exactly. He gestured towards my shoulder. As you know, Duke Lucas Suzerain was executed for his role in your kidnapping and the 1926 uprising, while his wife, Angelica, was sent into exile on Calacupes. While she remained under strict orders not to leave the island, no such restrictions were placed on the son she gave birth to shortly after arrival. He opened a folder and took out a picture of a clean-cut young man. Vina leaned forward to peer at it. Upon finishing his studies in Cairo, Manus returned to the mainland and proceeded to win the larger supporter base of any opposition leader we've seen thus far. His promises to give a voice to the common people seem to be resonating with the populace, part of it at least. You're right to be wary of him. We've got to keep him in our sights. We will. Hugo closed the folder. While I'm on the subject, a word about our houses. Gotta start with House Taurus, you know? Our family currently controls the province of Velocris, as well as the city-state of Iza. How is Velocris doing now that I've left? Stable as always. With you on the throne, me as Grand Vizier, and Rico in Iza, the governing seat has been filled by Herbertus, a distant cousin of ours. Of course, Princess Vina is eligible to take his place as the reigning Duchess. He nodded as my daughter. In a few years, maybe. I still don't feel ready. You're already smarter than I was when I became Duke, but it's your decision. Vina blushed. Thank you, Father. Hugo tapped his fingers on the table. In any case, Your Majesty, I don't expect any trouble in Velocris during your reign. It remains the wealthiest of Riza's provinces and the least affected by crime. Keep their lives comfortable, and the locals there will stay loyal to you. What's really going on in Iza? Has Rico been well received as Duke? Hugo's face hardened. Iza has been difficult since the Suzerain rebellion, even more so now that native Rizans are in danger of being crowded out by migrants. He spat the last word with some disdain. Migrants. Migrants. That was, I don't know. I can't do that very well, the spitting angrily at the end of a sentence. Anyways, considering the circumstances, I believe my son is doing just fine. Is Suamino still based there? Yes, and I shudder to think of what Iza would be without it. What about Rizia Imperia? We control that too, don't we? Yes, Porti Drazan, and its metropolitan area are controlled by the central government, and therefore House Taraz. You don't need to worry about pleasing our house in the region, though. It's more crucial to retain the favor of the major corporations that are based here. Understood. If our economy takes a hit, another uprising won't be far behind. Precisely. The Pale's administrative district is also under the jurisdiction of Rizia Imperi, since we reclaimed it in the early 20s. Got it, that's all. Hugo nodded approvingly. As for the other houses, House Suzerain? Yes, aside from Iza, which is now under Rico's governance, all of Brinda's is still their territory. The nobles there swore fealty to the crown in exchange for keeping a hold on their cities and their estates. But the return of Angelica's boy could test that loyalty. He is their rightful duke, after all. My father was too soft on the Sassans. I will keep them in line. At the moment, they're the weakest of the three houses. You do well to ensure they stay that way. Lest we forget, Wellen is scheduled to return Zil to Rizia next year. The Sassans expect the region to become part of their province, as it was before the uprising. The power balance between the houses is fragile enough. Adding so much land to Brinda's would upset it beyond repair. As king, you have the authority to make Zeal part of the central government, similar to Rizia Imperi, an option to keep in mind. I might just do that. And finally, House Azara? Precisely. The rulers of Carteres, Monteclair, and the stewards of the Rizian military. You must be aware of their patriarch, Tadius' poor health. The general suffered a stroke shortly after King Valero's death. Yes, I was saddened to hear. He taught me everything I know. His daughter, Lucitia, the Duchess of Monteclair, volunteered to take his place as War and Security Counselor. You meet her soon. You should also know that factions within her province have begun calling for the return of Pales. Again. I won't let House Azaro down. I'll finish what the general started. Be careful. We all know what the last campaign against the Grand Duchy ended. Hugo glanced at the clock. Oh well, we're going for it. I don't care. We're gonna get it back. That's why my first action was to increase our military. Well, I hope that was helpful. One more thing. As you're aware, a few years before our father's death, he reinstated the Golden Guard. Right, the personal secretary, the guys in, like, fully armored with sword, gun, whatever. Those are my secretaries. I need you to run a couple errands. The personal security of my father. And where are they now? Here, sir. Ready and able. For the first time I noticed the man standing in the corner of the room. He was wearing a tight-fitting gold blazer, and barely concealing his muscular physique. Meet Titus Gordian, captain of the Golden Guard. He and his men have been keeping close watch on you since the coronation. I'm pleased to meet you, Captain Gordian. Call me Titus, sir. Titan and his dozen men have been trained in the upper echelons of Rizia's elite military and police academies. Each has sworn an oath to protect the king and his family at all costs. So they're guarding they're guarding Vina and Queen Mother Estella as well? Yes, my men have eyes on the Queen Mother as we speak. He bowed to Vina. She looked a little flustered. But didn't Queen Liza discontinue the Golden Guard because she thought they made royals look elitist, and because she trailed off? Because she thought they were getting too powerful? It's why our current force is less than a third of the size it once was. Your father had a fondness for Rizian tradition, so he spared no expense in bringing the guard back, albeit in a reduced form. He was right to do so. The most important family in Rizia deserves the most important security forces. I won't let you down, sir. Thank you, Titan. You must wait outside the chambers until the meeting's conclusion. Titus nodded and swiftly left the room. Noon already. Shall we and the young Duchess heiress break for a glass of wine before the council convenes the afternoon? My character definitely would drink, but I think he'd rather be in his complete mind for his first meeting. Another time, Your Grace. I look forward to it. I mean, I'd love to hang out with you. I just don't want to, right now, I want to be fully focused for the meeting. Thank you for the offer anyways, Uncle Hugo. My pleasure. He turned to look Vina in the eye. I know how overwhelming the move to the capital can be, Your Highness. If you ever need someone to talk to, remember, you can always come to me. Vina smiled politely. That's very kind of you, Uncle Hugo. Yes, too kind. Forgive my forwardness. I'm simply excited to have the family together again. Well, I think she should come talk to me and Queen Mother before anyone else, but... Vina finished jotting down a few notes. The three of us packed up and left for the morning. We have decrees available. Ooh. Oh, we could do stuff like now. Okay. Well, I'll read these first. Yeah, we could do it from there. Nelvisar oil field on verge of depletion. Industry reports reveal that the Nelvisar oil field, once among Riza's most prolific sites, is nearing the end of its productive life, with experts predicting significant output decline within the next year. The imminent depletion has prompted calls for increased investment in alternative energy sources and reevaluation of Riza's long-term energy strategy. In Havez, we have coal deposits suspected in Havez. Geologists in Havez have noted in about the potential presence of significant coal deposits, sparking interest for further exploration. To ascertain the extent and economic viability of these resources, comprehensive seismic and subsurface surveys must be commissioned. And in Topis, unveiling the legacy of the Rizinid Empire. In a groundbreaking development that has captured the Kingdom of Riza's imagination, archaeologists in the esteemed city of Topes have unearthed remnants of what appears to be a major city from the long-lost Rizinid Empire. The extensive layout, marked by grandiose architecture and elaborate frescoes, suggests a significant center of commerce, governance, and culture, reflective of a bygone golden era of prosperity. RRG CEO speaks out against proposed mining regulations. In a press conference given at the Rizin Royal Gold headquarters in Porta Drazan, CEO Ruscio Elo Montoro spoke out against the mining safety regulations proposed by recently elected Morelian MP Elma Sultana. The regulations would affect the Meftium ITZ, the resource-rich region in which Rizia, Morella, Vagsland, and Lesbia currently all own rights. Listen, I have nothing but respect for Madam Prime Minister over there, Mr. Montoro, who prefers the name Rusty, told reporters. But she's gotten too big for her britches if she thinks she can tell our hardworking miners how to do their jobs. If our new king wants to earn his crown, he'll put her in her place. True. Okay, the sovereign tradition and clemency. By this royal decree, the kingdom solemnly affirms the transition of the crown within the Taurus lineage, from King Velero to King Ramus. The decree upholds the revered tradition of the monarchy, ensuring the continuity and the stability of the Taurus dynasty. Concurrent with this auspicious transition, King Ramus is, in his inaugural act of clemency, extends a royal pardon to 500 individuals convicted of minor offenses. Sure, let's go ahead and sign it. Housing for Poor initiative. RPP proposal. A new ambitious housing program is dedicated to the kingdom's homeless and those grappling with extreme financial constraints. By guaranteeing housing for every citizen, the state reiterates its commitment to unity, prosperity, and social harmony. Such endeavors are anticipated to cement public trust and ensure tranquility across Rizia. Approves, approves, disapproves, disapproves, and neutral. Alright, and then what do we have here? Excavation of Tope's ancient resonant city. Ooh. In homage to our ancestral heritage and to boost the tourism industry, the kingdom is launching an excavation and restoration project to resurrect the historic sites of Tropes, a landmark of the ancient resonant empire. With the city's excavation and restoration, we anticipate a renaissance of cultural pride, boosted tourism, and an uplift of public sentiment. Yeah, what? Let's do it. Why not? Let's sign this. Let's do the, let's do that one. But let's not do, that one. Which would probably be, make more sense to do. But, this is more fun. Topes to be restored to former glory. In a new decree, King Ramus has ordered the restoration of the ancient city of Topes back to its former glory. Topes was an important cultural hub in the Resonant Empire, one of its great cities. Unfortunately, the centuries took their toll, and the 2 days it's largely in ruin and disrepair. The Crown announced that the historic center will be restored as once was, with no expenses spared. A team of Rizian international experts in archaeology and restoration will lead the projects. Mercopa's brightest minds come together to unearth one of the brightest cities mankind has ever known. In addition to restoring the ancient city center, excavations of several historical sites surrounding Topes are planned. Once their mysteries have been revealed, these sites will open to the public in order to greatly boost historical and cultural tourism in the area. While this grand endeavor will take a while and will be costly, the palace promised that nothing can stand in the way of showing Riza's great culture to the world. Soon all of Mercopa will make the journey to see what our forefathers were capable of. Alright, now let's go to the introductory briefing from the Royal Council. Now that we've already done multiple things with royal decrees. It was late afternoon when Vina and I headed back to the chambers for the first council meeting. It was a hot day and I felt drained from the morning meeting. I was glad I'd refused Hugo's offer of wine. Yeah, I agreed. As we crossed the palace gardens, I had the feeling I was being watched. Suddenly I noticed a young man standing next to the path. His face matched the photograph Hugo had shown me that morning. Duke Suzerain, I presume? He smiled nervously. I hold you no land, your majesty, but you may use the title if you wish. It's brave of you to approach me. He tugged at his suit lapel. I wanted to introduce myself before our first official meeting. I may be the leader of the opposition, but I'm not your enemy. If you and I established a dialogue, I believe there's much we can accomplish for our country. Vina gave him an encouraging smile. How lovely of you to say that. I'm Vina Torres, by the way. He resisted the urge to laugh. I know. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm not uninterested in your proposition, but you'll have to request a formal audience with me, like everyone else. I understand. Looking forward to it, your Majesty, your Highness. Vina waved as we walked away. He seems nice. Don't get too smitten, he's the opposition after all. We continued towards the council chambers. Oddly enough, I still felt like someone had their eyes on me. I looked back for just long enough to see a flash of gold. Titus, of course. We entered the chambers where Hugo was already waiting for us. No sooner had we sat down than a brief rap came on the door. Without waiting for an answer, Lucida Azaro rushed in. The new War and Security Counselor was younger than I imagined, just past her mid-30s. She carried herself with a mix of regal elegance and solitary authority. Gentlemen, pardon my interruption? She bowed towards me. Please accept House Azaro's formal congratulations on your coronation, Your Majesty. I motioned for her to stand. Her eye was fixated on my uncle's shirt as she raised herself. Hugo, your grace, your shirt's button's wrong. My uncle looked chastised. Oh, hello, Princess Vina. Would you like a coloring book? She's 18, gestured Azaro. A cognate, then? She gave Vina a wide smile. Please don't mind me, Duchess Cesaro. I'm here to learn and observe as the royal heir. Lucita's brow wrinkled. She gave a curt nod. So I see. My father always spoke highly of you, your majesty. I wish he was the one greeting you today. He sends his regards, or he would if he were capable of speaking in full sentences. She was trying to be flippant, but I could sense emotion behind her words. I know the general. He's got some fight left in him yet. Lucita smiled with pride. The others should be right behind me. As if on cue, I heard the voices Elena Werner and Lorenzo Esquivel, my treasurer and consular of foreign affairs. For dash sake, Lorenzo, you don't need to hold the door open for me every time. I'm not as fragile as I look. I keep telling you, how could I allow a door to close on such a gorgeous face? As the two senior counselors stepped in, they immediately dropped the flirtatious routine and assumed a look of difference. Lorenzo smoothly removed his fedora, revealing a well-oiled mane of gray hair. Your Majesty, it's a pleasure and an honor to serve on your council. Alina nodded briskly. Despite her grandmotherly appearance, her demeanor was all business. Yes, welcome, your Majesty. If you're half the young man your father made you out to be, you'll make a fine king. Thank you, Miss Werner and Mr. Esquivel. I look forward to working with you both. And work we will. We have much ahead of us. Alina looked fondly at Vina. I'm pleased to see the young heiress as well. A new Lisa the Great in the making. Vina blushed. I wouldn't go that far, but I do hope you'll tell me about your time in Queen Lisa's court one day. I'd love to. There are just a few updates I've got to share with your father first. Once all the counselors were seated, Hugo began. Thank you for joining us. I'm pleased to have the entire council here for the first meeting. Well, not the entire council. The Grand Wiseman Plavo, preparing for the upcoming religious ceremony with His Majesty. But we needn't involve himself in the earthly concerns like our royal treasury. He smiled to himself, then gestured to Alina. Yeah, we've already blown through a bit of our royal treasury immediately. So, there is that. No, indeed. That's for me to worry about. She put a pair of half-moon glasses, then reached down to her purse, pulled out a thick leather-bound ledger, and flipped it open. Surely His Majesty has some awareness regarding the state of Riza's economy and resources. I do, but I'd like an update from you regardless. Certainly, Your Majesty. She smoothly adjusted her reading glasses before continuing. Riza is one of the wealthiest countries on the Mertopan continent, but His Majesty, the late King Varro, bequeathed us a number of challenges in that department. Where should I start? Tell me about our government budget. It's healthy, Your Majesty. Since we began trading with Rumburg, we've been running a surplus. Once that quite high for our region, though of course there's plenty of room for improvements. His Majesty King Valara was hesitant to increase government spending, perhaps even too hesitant. No need to sugarcoat it, he was a miser. He had his reasons, I'm sure, but he did miss a good number of investment opportunities that would have enriched our nation further. Including, of course, the opportunity to completely modernize the Rizian military. Alina pursed her lips. With all due respect, Duchess Cesaro, I'm not sure the military is the king's number one focus. Oh, it is. Why wouldn't it be, Miss Werner? Riza continues to have many enemies, both foreign and internal. Well said. Very well said. Your Majesty, we cannot rely on the likes of Wellen or Rumburg to protect us. Ultimately, shouldn't that money be spent on the Rizian people? Think of the advances we were able to make during the Liza era, due to Queen's investment in citizen welfare. You'll recall her famous quote, True prosperity is not defined by the amount of gold in our coffers, but by the health and happiness of each soul within our borders. More pragmatically, a happy and well-fed populace is one that does not rise up against its leaders. Hugo nodded. I will point out that Riza's wealth and my mother's judicious handling of it was one of the factors that allowed us to survive the century of revolutions. However, those were different times. As a modern nation in an era of increasing superpower influence, we're expected to have a certain standard of military. And there's the fact that we're sandwiched between the highly contentious regions of Zil and Pales. Precisely, Your Majesty. We've got to be prepared for the worst-case scenario, even if it doesn't happen. Your enthusiasm is heartening, Duchess Cesaro, even if personally believing our spending should be directed elsewhere. Any further questions, Your Majesty? What's been going on with our gold industry? Well, Your Majesty, gold is still the backbone of the Rizian economy. We have a number of active mines within the country, operated by the Rizian Royal Gold Corporation. She and Hugo exchange glasses. Unfortunately, we cannot talk about Rizian Royal Gold without talking about its CEO. We had better get that discussion over with. For better or worse, our country's gold stores rely on Rusolo Montoro. Mr. Montoro, who insists on being called Rusty, currently owns 70% of Rizian Royal Gold. As much as I respect Rusty, I believe we royals should be in charge of our own gold mines. That will be difficult, Your Majesty. He looked at Alina. Rusty's first move after taking over the company was to sue your father's governance for loss of revenue connected to the Zil handover. After a lengthy back and forth, it was agreed that the kingdom's share in RRG be decreased from 45 to 30%. I will not tolerate this. I want Reese's original stake back. Curry enough favor with Rusty and it should be possible, but any more than 45% will be difficult. I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't love the company even being there, but I'd be okay with him with just getting back our 45% share. I'd definitely take that agreement. The patent for RRG's property mining technology was filed in Virtue City, Arcacia. Most of financial assets are kept in Kairat. In other words, attempting to nationalize the company would strip it of a substantial amount of its value. She adjusted her glasses before continuing. Yeah, that's why we're saying we try to get it back to the 45% versus 55% split. He still has the majority, we get an increase, our money value goes up. Good deal for everyone. Well, good deal for us, and hopefully we can figure out a way for it to be a good deal for him to get him to agree. RRG may control mining within Rizia, but the royal government is direct stakeholder in Meftian International Trade Zone. She unrolled a map on the table and pointed to a region in the east of Morella. The double blow of losing our mines in Zil and 15% of our RRG stake has made us quite reliant on the gold from Mitz. Lorenzo stroked his mustache. It was established shortly before you joined the Royal Council, was it not, Alina? I heard the negotiations between Rizia, Vagslan, Lesbia, and Morella took over a year. When we get Zil back, will we get its gold back as well? I certainly hope so. One has been mining extensively in the region since taking over in 1927, but as per the terms of our agreement, Zil and all of its resources therein will return to Rizian ownership in 1952. At the time of the last survey, there was much more than 30 years worth of gold in the ground there. Can't we increase our mining efforts within Rizia to make up for the loss? We can try. There are a number of promising sites that have yet to be explored. We just need to give Rizian Royal Gold permission to begin excavations, which might involve the exploration of mobile property, depending on where the mines are located. I saw Hugo wince at the remark. How much say does the government have over operations in the midst? A fair amount. Any changes to regulations or profit shares have to be agreed on by all four nations involved. RRG gets a percentage of the MIT's profits for the use of its technology. We can make decisions without Mr. Montoro's input. That covers all topics about gold. Shall we move on? Let's talk about our energy holdings. Alina smiled. Of course, Your Majesty. This is a new area for us compared to gold, but the physical possibilities are intriguing indeed. She pointed at the map of Forever, this time directing our attention to the southern coast of Linquiz. Though our state energy company is called Rizian Oil and Gas, production of the former has slowed over the years and starting to come to a complete halt. The latter, however, shows potential. Our most productive gas fields is Aquarius off the coast of Topaz. Assuming enough money is invested into its expansion, we can expect it to fuel our kingdom for years to come. Or we can spend our budget elsewhere as we wait to assess the new field south of Calabres. Careful, Miss Werner. One shouldn't count one's peasants before they've been bagged. Excuse me, what field would that be? Alina looked at Laurenta, then at me. Well, we're still in the extremely early stages. We may have at least part of a claim to a substantial reserve of natural gas between the port of Pales and the Rizian island of Calaquiz. What are we waiting for? Let's get to drilling. Alina suppressed a smile. I'd like nothing more, Your Majesty, but protocol must be followed. Our researchers have been investigating the field's size and borders. Once those are known, it will be easy to determine ownership. Who cares? We just take over Pales and then boom, we're done. Of course, we are licensing extremely closely with Pales to avoid misunderstandings. As well as we should. Nobody wants a repeat of the class conflict. Really, Duchess Zaro? Your family's itching for a rematch? Lucida laughed uncomfortably. Just because the Arzoros are demanding the replication of Pales doesn't mean it's a good idea. Of course, if Pales shows hostility towards us, we will react in kind, but Rizia should not be the first to resort to aggression. Vina tentatively raised her hand. I don't know why we're even discussing a military response. We'll surely be able to reach a compromise using proper diplomacy. Time to grow up, my dear daughter, and in real life there's always a winner and a loser. Oh, but... Alina gently cut in. We should save this discussion for if and when we know more about the gas field in question. For now, are there any other questions? How much of our revenue comes from taxes? Our resource-based economy allows us to have some of the lowest tax rates on the continent. It's been a real boon for our economy. The central government does collect a flat income tax of 10%. This is mostly paid by workers, since nobles have no income to speak of. $10%? That's low, isn't it? Compared to most of our neighbors, yes, we do provide a high standard of social service to our people, what's mostly financed with trade income. This is by the House Delegates' design, Your Majesty. Lowering the tax burden on the citizens leads to higher satisfaction with the government and less likelihood of rebellion. A wise idea, but it leaves us at the mercy of our resource to trade partners. Not completely, but yes, if our international trade were to be disrupted, we would have to abandon this system. In terms of our province's individual contributions, the GDP in Velorquins is off the charts thanks to wine, gas, and tourism industries. Bernese is still suffering the effects of the loss of Iza and Zeal, however it's made advances in shipping and agriculture alongside its gold mines. The manufacturing concerns in Cadez Monteclair are doing very well, to the point that business councils are complaining about an imminent shortage of skilled workers. A shortage of Rizian workers, Elena. This vacancies could easily be filled with migrants from Willen and Durdia. That is a slippery slope, Mr. Escobar. Are you familiar with Riza's two-tier employment system, Your Majesty? Yeah, please explain to me. After the Welland Civil War, we began granting labor hand visas to Wessex migrants and a smaller number of Durdians. Labor hands may accept employment by Rizian industries, but they don't have the right to social security or other benefits, and there's a cap on how much they are allowed to earn. They now make up most of our blue-collar workforce, with higher-paid jobs held by native Rizians, as well as the smaller numbers of lesbians, Magslandians, and Rumburgians. The programs did wonders for the economy when King Valero initiated it, but as a result, we now have millions of workers in the country who are being treated like second-class citizens. They should have the same rights working rights as their Rizian counterparts, especially if they're paying taxes. Rizia offered Wessex asylum where other countries did not. There must be some limit to our generosity. There was a time when you supported that stance, Your Majesty. I'm just being pragmatic. Expanding foreign workers' rights does seem like a convenient solution to our shortage Elena missions. I'm all for pragmatism. I have viewpoints, but pragmatism fixes things. If we have a solution to a problem, we use our solution and fix the problem. Simple as that. From a security standpoint, allowing migrants to earn more money would curb the kind of black market activities that have been taking place in cities like Iza. Do not fear the disillusion of reason, culture, and values, Duchess Cesaro, or the infiltration of Dasnurus or Gawkiness into our worstest society. She shrugged. Societies change, Your Grace, and I don't recall those concerns being raised about Rumburgians who moved here after our alliance. Well put, Duchess. I can already tell you're going to be a brilliant addition to the Council. Thank you, Your Majesty. Now that I'm also kind of just playing because, I need the Council of War and Security on my side. I really want to change your opinion and maybe get you a little more pro the war happening maybe in the future. Get you a little more on my side. I saw a smile play across her lips. Hugo stayed silent. Alina looked uneasy at the three of us. She tapped a pencil at the table. We seem to have veered off track. Can we get back to our question about the economy? That's the information I need for now. Perfect, Your Majesty. Alina glanced down her notes, her expression contemplative. I'd like to assess several economic considerations. We should anticipate potential expenses rising for our impending physical policies. Please elaborate. The first point to consider is industrial growth. For expanding production and construction, we should make sure we have the energy to keep our facilities humming. We have good energy at the moment. Secondly, there's the matter of living standards. Improving the quality of life for our citizens naturally leads to higher administrative expenditures. Thirdly, if you do decide to listen to Duchess Cesaro and expand our defensive capabilities, keeping in mind that the cost of upkeep for our armed forces will rise accordingly. Lastly, energy management poses its own challenges. As we approach the limits of our grid's capacity, we may incur additional storage costs. This information is valuable, Alina. I appreciate your insights. Frankly, I'm glad to see you taking such an interest in our finances. Well, I need to take an interest in our finances if I want to improve our army. You can't run an army without money. Just being pragmatic. Between myself and the House of Delegates, we were able to keep everything running smoothly, in the absence of clear guidance from your father. With the king of your caliber at the helm, there's no telling how high we can soar. Your hard work during my father's decline is to be commended. My character also thinks his father is an idiot. Like, that's just part of his character. Which is one of those times where somebody's having father issues in a character that actually doesn't have them in real life. I have mother issues, not father issues in real life. So yeah. But yeah, my character definitely has father issues. Thank you. It was indeed quite the stressful time for everyone. I think that's enough for today, but we'll have to come to a decision regarding the development of our resources. Gold is where most of our profits are coming from today, and it holds a special place in our history, but maintain that natural gas would be a more fruitful investment. I'll let you think about it, Your Majesty. Thank you, Miss Werner. This was indeed enlightening. A pleasure to finally share these chambers with you, King Ramus. Yes, I'm looking forward to our upcoming security briefing. And congratulations on surviving your first council meeting, Your Highness. I find it fascinating, Your Grace. They smiled at each other, not altogether sincerely. My counselors left. I sat for a few more minutes, reflecting on what Alina and the others had said. Alright. Whoa, we got a lot of decrees available. But we'll check those out in the next video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.